Okay, so we're going to read the last chapter of Hoot today, chapter 21. Just to recap, in chapter 20, a huge protest happened at the construction site during the opening ceremony in protection of the owls. So in this chapter, we're going to find out if that protest really helped save the owls or not. Napoleon Bridger? Roy read the name out loud. Certainly colorful, his mother remarked. They were at the breakfast table. Mrs. Eberhardt carefully clipping articles and photographs from the morning newspaper. The front page picture featured a picture of Roy, Beatrice, and Mother Paula clasping hands in the circle demonstration. The head of Beatrice's stepbrother could be seen in the background, looking very much like a fallen coconut with a blonde toupee. The caption underneath the photo revealed Mother Paula as the actress and former beauty queen named Kimberly Lou Dixon. Beatrice's stepbrother was identified as Napoleon Bridger Leap. Is he back home now? Roy's mother asked. I don't know if he'd call it that, Roy said, but he's back with his mom and stepbrother. At the scene of the student protest, Lana Leap had pitched a weepy, stuttering fit and demanded to be reunited with her son. Not knowing any better, the police officers led her through the crowd towards Mullet Fingers, spooking the bald little owl away from the boy. My champ, my brave little hero, Lana swooned for the cameras as he wiggled out of the burrow. Roy and Beatrice had watched in helpless disgust as she locked Mullet Fingers in a smothering, melodramatic hug. Mrs. Eberhardt clipped out the newspaper photo of Lana posing with the boy, who looked extremely uncomfortable. Maybe things will be better for the two of them, Roy's mother said hopefully. No, Mom, she just wanted to be on TV. Roy reached for his backpack. I'd better get going. Your father wants to see you before school. Oh. Mr. Eberhardt had been working late the previous night, and Roy had already gone to sleep by the time he's been home. Is he mad? Roy asked his mother. I don't think so. Mad about what? Roy pointed at the newspaper, checkerboarded with scissor holes, about what happened yesterday, about what me and Beatrice did. Honey, you didn't break any laws. You didn't hurt anybody, Miss Eberhardt said. All you did was speak out for what you believed was right, and your dad respects that. Roy knew that respects wasn't necessarily the same as agrees with, and he had a feeling that his father was sympathetic on the owl issue, but Mr. Eberhardt had never came out and said so. Mom, is Mother Paula still going to build the pancake house? I don't know, Roy. Apparently this muckle fellow lost his temper and tried to strangle a reporter when she asked the same question. No way! Roy and Beatrice had left before the impromptu press conference was over. Mrs. Eberhardt held up the clipping. It says so right here. Roy couldn't believe how much space the newspaper had devoted to the owl protest. It must have been the biggest story to hit Coconut Grove since the last hurricane. His mother said, the phone started ringing at 6 this morning. Your dad had to take it off the hook. I'm really sorry, Mom. Don't be silly. I'm making a whole scrapbook, honey. Something to show your children and grandchildren. I'd rather show them the owls, Roy thought, if there's any of them left by then. Roy! It was his father calling him in the den. Could you please get the door? A thin young woman with short, cropped black hair greeted Roy on the front steps. She was armed with a spiral notebook and a ballpoint pen. Hi, I'm from the Gazette, she announced. Thanks, but we've already got a subscription, I think. The woman laughed. Oh, I don't sell the newspaper. I write it. I'm Kelly Colfax. On her neck, Roy noticed several bluish, finger-sized marks that resembled the bruises that Dana Matherson had left on him. Roy figured that Kelly Colfax was the reporter whom Chuck Muckle had tried to choke. I'll get my father, he said. Oh, no, that's not necessary. It's you I wanted to speak with. You are Roy Eberhardt, right? Roy felt trapped. He didn't want to act rude, but he certainly didn't want to say anything that might cause more trouble for Mullet Fingers. Kelly Colfax began firing questions. How did you get involved with the demonstration? Are you friends with Napoleon Bridger Leap? Are you two involved in the vandalism incidents on Mother Paula's property? Do you like pancakes? What kind of pancakes? Roy's head was whirling. Finally, he broke in and said, Look, I was just there to stand up for the owls. That's all. As the reporter jotted down Roy's words, the door swung open and there stood Mr. Eberhardt, shaved and showered and neatly dressed in one of his gray suits. Excuse me, ma'am, may I have a word with my son? Absolutely, said Kelly Colfax. Mr. Eberhardt brought Roy inside and closed the door. Roy, you don't have to answer any of her questions. But I just want her to know. Here, give her this. Roy's father clicked open his briefcase and removed a thick manila folder. What is it? She'll figure it out. Roy opened the folder and broke into a grin. This is the file from City Hall, isn't it? A copy, said his father. That's correct. The one with all the Mother Paula stuff. I tried to find it, but it wasn't there. Now I know why. Mr. Eberhardt explained that he had borrowed the file, Xeroxed every page, and then taken the material to some lawyers who were experts on environmental matters. So does Mother Paula's have permission to marry the Owldens or not? Was it in the file? His father shook his head. Nope. Roy was so excited, but also puzzled. Dad, shouldn't you be giving this to somebody in the Justice Department? Why do you want me to hand it over to the newspaper? Because that's something that everyone in Coconut Grove ought to know, Mr. Eberhart spoke in a hushed and confidential tone. Actually, what isn't there is what's important. Tell me, Roy said, and his father did. When Roy opened the door again, Coley Colfax was waiting with a perky smile. Can we continue our interview? Roy smiled brightly in return. Sorry, I'm running real late for school. He held out the file. This might help with your story. The reporter tucked the notebook under one arm and snatched the folder from Roy's hands. As she thumbed through the documents, the elation on her face dissolved into frustration. What does all this stuff mean, Roy? What exactly am I looking for? I think it's called an EIS, Roy said, exciting what his father told him, which stands for Environmental Impact Statement. Right, of course, the reporter said. Every big construction project is supposed to do one. That's the law. Yeah, but Mother Paula's EIS isn't in there. You're losing me, Roy. It's supposed to be in that file, but it's not. That means the company never did one, or they lost it on purpose. Ah, Kelly Colfax looked as if she had just won the lottery. Thank you, Roy, she said, embracing the folder with both arms as she backed down the steps. Thank you very much. Don't thank me, Roy said under his breath. Thank my dad, who obviously cared about the owls too. So that was the end of chapter 1. Or chapter 21, I apologize. So how do you feel about the ending of the book? Thanks for following along as we read this book together. I had a lot of fun and I hope you did too.